It's been 18 months since Jeremy Corbyn passed on the Labour leadership to Keir Starmer, and already a lot has changed. The dust hasn't quite yet settled on Corbyn's 4 years as Labour leader, but the speed of change begs the question, is the Labour Party a fundamentally different political animal now, or was the Corbyn period a temporary phase in the party's history? Prior to the 2015 election, Labour had 198,000 members. By the time Corbyn exited power, that figure stood at around 550,000. Just over 100,000 members have left the party since then, but has that huge surge in membership changed Labour?
I think in general, Corbyn, reinvigorated the Labour Party as a mass membership organisation, but whether that is permanent or not, I think remains to be seen. There's a lot of talk about people leaving, and indeed, the Labour membership does seem to have dropped actually quite considerably since he left the leadership. Having said that, however, it's still probably double what it was when Ed Miliband was leader of the Labour Party. So, there is still at the moment anyway, a lasting impact in that respect. So I'd say, the centre of gravity of the Labour Party ideologically has shifted slightly to the left, although I wouldn't overdo that, slightly towards the socially liberal, although again, I wouldn't overdo that. And it's more of a mass membership organisation than it once was. Although whether that will actually make as much difference as some people used to think to Labour's ability to win an election by having more boots on the ground is very much a moot point after what happened in 2019, when Labour, with its much bigger membership, was still thrashed by the Conservative Party.
Has Jeremy Corbyn changed the power balance in the Labour Party? Dr. Andrew Crine's recently published Corbynism in Perspective, a collection of essays assessing the former Labour leader's impact on the party.
Well, within the Labour Party, as historically has always been the case, there are different locations of power, both formal and informal power. Power is also very much an ephemeral concept. So where does power lie doesn't really depend upon where power exists in the formalised base. So you will have power, say, in the rank and files, and leaders that sort of emerge within that to sort of instill and inspire them. You will have power within the parliamentary party, and you will have power groupings within the parliamentary party as well. And you will also have power basically in various other locations, such as trade union power or democratisation powers, and they also commentators such as groups like Momentum. Each of these have got a degree of power over the sort of left-wing political arguments that are made and legitimised in the UK and within the Labour Party now as well. So where does power lie within the Labour Party? I would say it lies in multiple diverse places that no one leader can actually control, and that it is up to the formal leader of the Labour Party to try and navigate that balance, to sort of try and deal with various disparate groups in the Labour Party to try and present themselves as a united group, which is very problematic when you have different interpretations of what the left is and what the left is not.
Post-Corbyn, it is still too early to say whether his tenure as leader has made a lasting impact. Keir Starmer looks to be advocating a different path, publishing a pamphlet outlining his vision for the Labour Party in the Fabian Society. Their General Secretary Andrew Harrop suggests many of Starmer's ideas don't stray too far from Corbyn's policy positions.
I think the biggest difference between Keir Starmer and Jeremy Corbyn's style is about who they're talking to and the language they're using. So Jeremy used to try to sound very radical and to energise people who were already on the left and wanted to see a transforming radical government. Keir Starmer's approach is to try and be reassuring and reach out to people in the middle of the road who aren't particularly political and tell them that Labour is going to bring change that will give them more security and will sort of be in tune with their values. the policy differences are real, but actually I think they're less significant than that sort of stylistic difference. So at the Labour Party conference, you saw Keir Starmer announce some pretty big policies that could have easily been in a Jeremy Corbyn manifesto. Now, there weren't loads of them because they're holding things back at this stage in the Parliament, but the announcement on spending to tackle climate change, huge amount of spending promised, and also the reforms to the labour market and giving unions more power. Both of those were far more to the left than anything we saw in the New Labour years, and would have easily sort of been at home in a Jeremy Corbyn platform.
Jeremy Corbyn's legacy is the subject of furious debate. It is that debate that many of his critics argue is his biggest failing, a failure to deal with a culture of hostility that has festered within the party.
The culture of the Labour Party has changed for the worse as a result of Jeremy Corbyn being the leader, but that's not to say it's his personal fault. What you saw was the division of people with very different perspectives on the direction of the Labour Party, both Corbyn's supporters and his opponents, and it's the fact that both those camps existed that created the hostility, the toxicity, and it will only change if people on all sides want it to. So we need to have, you can't say one side needs to change. Everyone in the Labour Party has to change how they work with each other and treat each other, even in disagreement, so that we have respectful, comradely disagreement, rather than the sort of hostility and toxicity we've seen in recent times and continues at the moment.
I believe in a decent, socially just society. And he was talking as though this was a sort of obituary. Just to let him know, my voice will not be stilled. I'll be around, I'll be campaigning, I'll be arguing, and I'll be demanding justice for the people of this country and indeed the rest of the world.
Leaders come and go, but Jeremy Corbyn has changed the Labour Party. Corbyn has breathed new life into Labour's left wing. Whether future Labour leaders like it or not, Corbynism will be here to stay.
Corbynism. Well, I don't think we've heard the last of it. I mean, we're still talking about Benism in some ways today. I think we're going to be talking about Corbynism for a long time. So whether or not there could be another future Labour leader that's like Corbyn, I would say it's very likely in terms of the ideological position. The question is, for the left, is can they find a figure that has the ideology of Corbyn and the activism of Corbyn and put them into an electorally salient sort of individual that can resonate those messages beyond just the sort of narrow field of left-wing supporters.